yourself, okay? So, if in fact at the end of your education it produces you more wealth than you think you'd have gotten without the education, you will probably say, I'm glad I took that action. Even though it's 2 years, 4 years, 6 years, 8 years, you're going to be a doctor, it's going to be 12, 16 years. It was worth the effort. No pain, no gain. It's going to produce the desired result. That's exactly what Aristotle said. If the action produces a desired result, we're going to say this is a good action. Everybody see that? Okay, but that's not the only way to make wealth. Now, some people in society have a problem with that because it's usually the poor that buy tickets because they don't have anything, and unfortunately the odds are 174 million to 1. But that doesn't stop most of us from spending a $2 ticket. I think it was about, 3 months ago, someone just down the road, Ridge Road at a 7-Eleven, had a winning ticket at one point. $168 million take home after taxes, 20-year-old kid. I don't think I've ever heard a story of someone who spent $2 on a lottery ticket and won it, and the next day after they won it, say, I wish I'd have just gone down to Nico's and had a beer with that $2. Now, unfortunately, they got a hard lesson to learn. Most people win the lottery are not happy at the end of the day. But why do we buy lottery tickets? Because we think money is going to make us happy. And as long as you win the lottery, that action produced the desired consequence, and at least initially, we're glad we won the lottery. Anybody follow what I'm talking about? Anybody not want to win the lottery? You buy lottery tickets not to win? I mean, you do. You buy lottery tickets not to win, but that's not why you buy the lottery tickets, right? Okay, do I have anybody going into law or law enforcement, lawyers? Okay, do not take this personal, and I am not endorsing this. I'm making a point. When I got out of the military, I worked in the county jail on a jail alcohol program, and I talked to a lot of people who were in the jail and couldn't go home at night. I could lock the door and go home, and I would lock their door, and they couldn't go home. And they'd go out and come back after they did their time, and finally I said, why you do what you do anyway? I mean, don't you want to be free? And they said, well, I'm free. I'm freer than you are. I get to go to work when I want to. I get to go to work where I want to. I don't have to pay taxes. See, what most people don't know is most crime is not reported, and when it is reported, most crime is not solved. I'm not endorsing robbery. But it does produce the desired consequence. For example, a good friend of mine, I always make friends with police wherever I am. Mike Welsh was a retired sergeant in the Michigan State Police. Saw Michael one day, said, Larry, you won't believe what happened in Bloomfield Hills. Bloomfield Hills is just north of Detroit in the wealthy area. He says some guy owns a business, got 100 or so people under his employment, came home one afternoon, parked his BMW 7 Series in the driveway. That's a $135,000 car. Went inside, he and Mama had dinner, got up next morning, go to work, and the bimmer's not in the driveway. Guy freaked right out. Called the police. They came, did their investigation, said, we'll do our best to recover your car. The guy had to go to work. He's got hundreds of people working for him. He went to work, could not concentrate on work. Finally came home early, 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Cab pulls into the driveway, and there's his BMW 7 Series parked right where he left it the night before. He got his baby back. Windshield under the wiper blade is a little envelope. Opens the envelope, a little note inside, says, sorry for the inconvenience. My wife's water broke on the way to the hospital. I'm a master mechanic. I detailed your car. It's in perfect condition. To try and make it right, 2 tickets, Twilight doubleheader Detroit Tigers. Guy got his baby back. Went inside, told Mom. This is a true story. Went inside, told Mama. Got her dressed up. They went out, had dinner, went to the baseball game. Both games, Tigers won the doubleheader. Got home about 1:30 in the morning. They were never after the bimmer. They need to get them out of the house so they could get the really expensive stuff out of the house while they were away. No lying, stealing, cheating, raping, robbing. It follows Aristotle's principle, but we say no. And that's why we have law, because some people don't know how to regard other people's freedom, and so we put them in a different box. until they can learn the lessons, until they can learn about the social contract. That's why you don't want to put your hairy toe across the line. The law is there to maximize our freedom. Even though this follows Aristotle's formula, we decide that that is not acceptable behavior. Everybody follow why it's that way? Okay. In the middle 1800s, a German philosopher comes along. His name is Immanuel Kant. You should pronounce it Kant, but that's just, it should be a C in our language, so it's really Immanuel Kant. And he says Aristotle got it backwards. He says what's important is the action regardless of the consequences. You do the right thing for the right reason all the time. No lying, stealing, cheating, raping, robbing, red light, green light. And out of respect for Aristotle, he uses a Greek word called deontology. Ology means the study of whatever comes in front of it. And this word then is deontos. Deontos means duty. Kant said, it's your moral duty to do the right thing all the time. No lying, stealing, cheating, raping, and robbing. What would life be if we stole all the time, if we cheated one another, if we lied to one another? He said life wouldn't, you can't have life like that. Life needs to be regulated by the action, even though at times the action might produce an undesirable consequence. So how many first responders do I have in here? This lecture is really aimed at you. And not just EMTs or fire people or police. This is for nurses. You have to enter into the situation. You're required by law. You're protected, for the most part, by a Good Samaritan law. I'm military trained. Someone's bleeding out. I can try and save their life and lose it. You're trained and you can try and save their life and lose the same life, but I will get taken to court. Now, you may get taken to court, but the law's on your side. And so moral duty applies to first responders in a way it doesn't apply to the rest of us. You choose to put duty before consequences. You run into burning buildings, we run out. We run away from a fusillade of bullets. Military and police run in. We come across a horrible accident. I've seen people just dead within seconds. I mean, it's the weirdest. I've been around dead people. I've watched them die. I've been in hospital rooms and watched them die. It's a different look than people who get killed. They have the most vacant stare. And most of us would just rather keep, you know, we slow down and rubberneck. And then once we get by it, it's like, phew. Well, first responders, you have to deal with it. You have to pick up little babies off the street. You have to pick up brains off the ground. You have to deal with that. That's your duty. And you accept that moral duty. You are what Kant would call deontologists. And you sign a code of ethics that you do that, because that's your duty. Well, was Kant right? Building totally consumed in flames, 3 stories high, ready to fall down. Little 3-year-old girl on the 3rd floor. If you go in, you're not going to save her. Military and triage, you come out of combat, you got 20 men wounded, 3 of them, maybe you can save 1. You got 17 you can save, and if you put all, because the rule says you deal with the most wounded, the most injured. In triage, we have to make decisions. Some people, you just move to the side, and you save the 17 that you can, and you get to live with that decision. You send the fireman into that building, he's going to burn up. Maybe another 20 years, he'd save 30 more people. And you take that duty on, that's your moral duty. You sign up for that. You don't get to run. But do we compel them to have to go in when there's no chance of saving another life? So that's going to bring me to a story I'm going to tell you. Now, this is a real story. This is a real story. Happened in my life. And then I'm going to change the story. I'm going to take the story over to Hollywood, and I'm going to change it a little bit. Well, Hollywood is not real, it's fiction, but it's going to sound real. And then I'm going to take it one more time over to Hollywood over here, and I'm going to change it one more time. The only thing that's real is the first story I'm going to tell you. I had someone be angry at me for an entire semester until they figured out I was telling a story after I told you the real story. Everybody understand what I'm saying? So I'm going to tell you a fantasy after I tell you a real story. Everybody understand that? But if you don't, I'll hear about it later on, I'm sure. But okay, so hopefully that'll, okay. So I raised my kids up here in northern Michigan. This is lower Michigan, this is the upper peninsula, okay? We get a lot of wind up there because we got the lakes, and wind just, if wind's not fettered, if wind's not slowed down, it just keeps on going. We got the bridge up here, and you can get 50, 60, 70 miles an hour. And wind's smart. When it runs into resistance, it's like water. It tries to find the path of least resistance. So when it runs into trees, it just has a way of filtering in here, and that's why I guess, in fact, later on in the course, I'll talk about a car that got blown off at there, the first death on the bridge. I was in the hospital when they brought the boy in. Okay. The reason I'm telling you that is because I raised my kids up there in this little town up here. And then over here is a little town called Walloon Lake. It's got 2 long lake arms, and they say it's one of the 10 prettiest lakes in the world. We used to go there and swim. Now, I grew up in the only town so bad they named it twice. Did I go through this? New York, right? Never learned how to swim. We'd go to the ocean, we'd body surf. Just wait for the waves to come in. Lose your pants once in a while, kind of rough waves out there, but we didn't have to learn how to swim. I've almost drowned 3 times in my life. My father was a flight engineer for Pan American. It's a worldwide airline in the state. It was the jewel of airlines. And he was a flight engineer, and every Christmas he'd go down to Miami and he'd teach young men to be flight engineers. And when we were 16, he decided to take us down to Miami with him for vacation. So we went down. We stayed at a motel. What does every motel have? A pool. And icy water. So I jump in. I didn't know there was a deep end and a shallow end in pools. I'd never been in a pool before. I jumped in the deep end. I don't know how to swim. I don't have to. I body surf. About the 3rd time the lifeguard saw me doing this, he figured out I wasn't waving hi to my mom. I was waving bye to my mom. And he jumps in. Now, I'm athletic. I went to college on a scholarship, you know. Teaches me how to swim professionally. You know, there's a professional way to swim. You put your hand down in the water and you give yourself a little draft. It's like those race cars at the racetracks. They get right up on close to one another. They draft a little bit and just a little less resistance. In fact, if you watch the Olympics, they'll show you the 100-meter dash. Here's the pool and the wall, and they'll always say, watch the wave before they touch the wall, because they're all doing that in there. Okay, so that being said, this is the 3rd time. This is a 3rd time for me. 1st time's in Miami, 2nd time outside of Benton Harbor in Michigan, right to the east side of Chicago. Ran into a riptide at midnight one night. You do not want to be in a riptide and fight it. Your only chance is to let it take you. About 1.5 miles closer to Chicago. Finally, Wendy and I dropped out of the tide. So now I'm up north, and I'm at this beach, pretty little beach. Set the towel out, true story, set the towel out, got 2 out of the oven, I eventually got 4, I got 2 out of the oven, Mama sets everything down, and there at the beach's edge, this little blonde-haired boy's crying because his beach ball got away from him and got blown out in the lake. My wife looked at me and says, why don't you swim out there and get that beach ball? You're an athlete. So I swim out there. Now, salt water you can't drown unless you drink too much of it. It's buoyant. It keeps you up. Fresh water, you're moving or you're going down. So I'm going out there. Now, there's trees, and then as you get out into the lake, the trees stop, so the wind comes up over the trees. It's a mild day, maybe 8-10 miles an hour, but there's no resistance. And this ball is lighted in air. Again, it's got air, so it's just